You're listening to What to Listen To, the podcast that answers the question you didn't even know you were asking. From fascinating deep dives to thought-provoking trends, we've got your ears covered, so sit back, plug in, and let's explore what's worth your time today.
Hey everyone, and welcome to What to Listen To. It's the podcast that takes you on a deep dive into the most fascinating corners of history. And today, we're back to the 1950s, San Francisco. Bustling streets, cable cars, and behind the scenes, a chilling secret was unfolding. Operation Sea Spray. But first, a huge shout out to our sponsor, whyhateclothing.com. They're asking the question of the year, why hate? I am loving all the why hate gear, especially this Make America Love Again hat. And let me tell you, the Freddy hot sauce is incredible. Okay, back to 1950s San Francisco. The Cold War is in full swing, and the threat of a Soviet attack, especially with biological weapons, was a very real fear.
Yeah, that fear permeated American society. People were terrified of a nuclear attack, at a biological weapon, one that could spread silently and infect an entire city. It was terrifying.
And that fear is at the heart of why the U.S. military decided to conduct Operation Sea Spray. They wanted to understand how a bioweapon might spread in a densely populated urban environment. And they chose San Francisco. But why San Francisco? What made it the ideal location?
Well, several factors. The coastal location. It allowed the Navy to position ships offshore and easily release the bacteria.
And the fog.
Exactly. The fog was thought to help carry and disperse the bacteria.
So the military chose San Francisco, but what about the bacteria? What were they spraying on people?
The Navy used two types of bacteria, Serratia marcescens and Bacillus globigii. Now, it's important to note that at the time, these bacteria were considered harmless.
So they weren't trying to make people sick.
No, their goal wasn't to cause illness. They used these bacteria as tracers to track how a potential bioweapon might spread throughout the city.
Okay, so walk us through how this operation actually unfolded.
It was a massive undertaking. Navy ships are positioned off the coast of San Francisco. They used large hoses, almost like giant fire hoses, to spray a mist containing the bacteria into the air. They relied on the wind and the fog to carry the bacteria inland.
I can't help but picture this scene in my mind. These giant hoses, the wind. It's unsettling. And what's even more unsettling is that the people of San Francisco had no idea this was happening.
That's right. No warnings, no information given. It was completely clandestine.
Wow. Can you imagine finding that out?
Absolutely. It raises some serious ethical questions, especially because shortly after Operation Sea Spray, a 75-year-old man named Edward Nevin, he was admitted to Stanford Hospital with a rare and severe urinary tract infection.
Hold on. Are you saying this infection was caused by the bacteria they released?
Well, the infection was caused by Serratia marcescens, one of the bacteria they sprayed.
Oh, wow. What happened to Mr. Nevin?
Sadly, he passed away. And to make matters worse, 10 other patients at the same hospital, they developed similar infections.
It's hard not to connect the dots here. Did anyone suspect a link at the time?
Unfortunately, no. The connection wasn't made right away. It took decades for the truth about Operation Sea Spray to come to light.
So how did the public finally find out?
It took until the 1970s, congressional hearings on bioweapon testing, for the details to be revealed.
Wow, over 2 decades. That's incredible. What happened when the public found out? What about Edward Nevin's case? We'll get into all of that after a quick word from our sponsor.
People were outraged, shocked, and angry that they had been exposed without their knowledge or consent, and that the government kept it a secret for so long.
It's understandable. It feels like a betrayal. Did the government try to defend their actions?
Yes. They claimed that the bacteria were harmless.
Yeah.
And that there was no evidence of long-term health effects.
But what about Edward Nevin? His death seems to contradict that.
Exactly. The Nevin case. It demonstrated that even bacteria considered harmless could have devastating consequences.
It raises serious ethical questions about the government's actions. Yeah. Especially because informed consent wasn't standard practice back then.
You're right.
So what happened with Edward Nevin's case? Did his family take any legal action?
Yeah. They filed a lawsuit, alleging that the release of Serratia marcescens during Operation Sea Spray contributed to Edward Nevin's death.
That must have been a landmark case. What happened?
The lawsuit. It brought the issue to the public and sparked a national debate about ethics in government research.
Wow.
The family didn't win the case, but it led to significant changes in how the government conducts research, especially research involving humans.
It sounds like Edward Nevin's death, in a way, became a catalyst for positive change.
You could say that. The public outcry, the legal challenges, It forced the government to reevaluate its policies and prioritize informed consent in human research.
That's a crucial legacy, even if it came at a terrible cost. It's a reminder that we have a responsibility to hold our government accountable and demand ethical conduct in all areas, including scientific research. This whole story is a roller coaster. It really makes you think about the balance between national security and individual rights, and the importance of transparency.
Absolutely. Operation Sea Spray serves as a reminder that the pursuit of national security should never come at the expense of individual liberties or ethical principles.
So we've talked about the ethical fallout, but did Operation Sea Spray actually achieve its goals? Did the military learn anything valuable?
That's a good question. The data. It did provide some insights into how biological agents spread. The military mapped how the bacteria moved and which areas were most vulnerable.
So they did learn something, but was it worth it?
That's a complex question. The scientific value of the data, it's debatable, especially considering the ethical breaches and the harm caused.
It makes you wonder if the government has learned from its past mistakes.
That's a question we should always be asking, and not just about historical events. We need to be vigilant about research today to make sure ethical considerations are prioritized and that transparency is maintained.
That's a great point. What if something like Operation Sea Spray was happening today, but with technology we don't even know about?
That's a chilling thought. It's possible that similar experiments are happening right now, in secret, using advanced technologies that we can't even imagine.
It's a reminder that we can't be complacent when it comes to our rights and freedoms.
Absolutely. We need to stay informed, ask questions, and challenge those in power.
This has been a fascinating deep dive. Before we wrap up, any final thoughts?
Operation Sea Spray. It's a cautionary tale about government overreach and the importance of protecting individual rights.
Makes you wonder about other research projects from the Cold War, maybe even research that's happening today.
Exactly. Operation Sea Spray, it was part of a larger pattern during the Cold War where ethical boundaries were blurred in the pursuit of science or national security.
So there were other experiments, other instances where the public was exposed.
Yes, unfortunately. Open-air tests using different biological and chemical agents, often in populated areas.
Open-air tests, meaning they released these substances into the environment.
Yeah, they did these tests before they understood the long-term effects.
It's hard to believe that they were conducting these experiments on their own citizens without their consent.
It's a dark chapter in history. It raises questions about national security and individual rights, questions that are still relevant today. How much are we willing to sacrifice for security? Who gets to decide?
It's a conversation we need to be having, especially today, with technology advancing so quickly and the potential for new threats.
I agree. We need to learn from our mistakes and approach the future carefully, prioritizing ethics and transparency.
Well said. This has been an eye-opening deep dive. It's a reminder that history is full of surprises, and sometimes those surprises are unsettling.
It's been a pleasure. It's important to explore these lesser-known events, even the uncomfortable ones.
Thank you for your expertise. To our listeners, we hope you found this as fascinating as we did. It's a story that raises more questions than it answers. Keep digging, keep researching, and stay curious. Until next time.
Until next time, don't just hear the world, listen to it.